Good morning. I've been looking at an initiative called Global Futures 2045, which is a website for, and a few videos have been made about it, and it was also, there's been a series of conferences based on it. It's an initiative that started in Russia a couple of years ago, seems to have been started by a kind of entrepreneur chap, and it's essentially a kind of transhumanist movement. It's gathering together people who are interested in consciousness research, in robotics, in bioengineering, in nanotech, in those kind of technological and scientific fields, together with some stuff to do with consciousness. And there's a lot of kind of spirituality stuff involved in it. People on the edges of those kind of things. Some of that, I have to say, I'm finding a little bit myself a bit averse to, but I'm trying to keep that at bay, keep an open mind. But there's some things about it I am finding a little bit kind of odd, and it's particularly pertinent to me how I'm feeling today, really, because of an event I went to last night, which I'll come on to in a second. But one of the kind of mission statements that's associated with this Global Futures 2045 project is what they see as, what seems to be being put forward at least, as an organised set of developmental aims in order to, with the intention of kind of leaving these fleshly bodies behind and starting to occupy initially robotic bodies, and then kind of swarms of nanotech version bodies, and then ultimately entirely software bodies. But it's always bodies. It's kind of weird, really. This is what I find slightly odd. The person that you become in this process, the person that is being the transhuman individual in this, and you've got people like Vito Moore, who's transhumanist, and people like Roger Penrose and those kind of guys, all seem to have this vision that it's that the body, the thing we'll be taking forward into the future, the consciousness, the life, the all that kind of stuff that we'll be taking through into the future will be somehow embodied in the way that we're embodied right now. You know, here I am, a single individual, you know, with a starting point and an ending point. Okay, I've got a certain lifespan at the moment, and if these guys get their way, that will be extended, indefinitely perhaps. But essentially, it's just this, you know what I mean? But just slightly more robust, slightly more expanded version of this. And that just seems really limited. I don't know, to me at least, because the model of consciousness is just like this, but a bit bigger, as well as being the body just like this, but a bit stronger. And I think if I was wanted to evolve a future consciousness, it wouldn't be like that. It would be completely different. I would want one that wasn't associated with this kind of understanding of what a body is. You know, because the way my self works, and I'm guessing the way your self works, is largely built on the template of the kind of body I've got. And if I'm going to transcend my body, if I am going to aim myself into a transhumanist future, I don't see the reason why I would want to keep this template. Now, the reason why I say this is significant in terms of what I went to last night is I went to a research talk at the university where I work, and there's a guy on there, I think he's called Peter Hook, his name's just got out of my mind, but I'll put it in the description box anyway. But he's a really interesting guy, as a kind of researcher, artist, technologist, inventor guy. He's getting on a bit. He's been around for a long time. He's done some work on films, so he worked on Labyrinth, I think he said. He's done a bit of work at NASA, as well as, you know, inventing lots and lots of different stuff. And his main line of research is to do with researching perception, and he was talking about that and showing some of his experiments last night. And some of that is to do with the perception of sound, some of it's the perception of pain, or perception of felt senses like wetness or coldness, but mainly it was to do with visual perception. So he'd invented these devices. The reason why I went and why I was interested, because some of you know, I invented some of these devices myself a few years ago. But he'd invented these devices which did things like expanded your vision, so that through a series of mirrors or prisms, instead of your pupils of your eye being 3 inches apart, they were here, you know, just a series of mirrors. And it just created a really different perspectival effect, or ones that either reversed your image, so the image you looked at was upside down, or switched left and right, so your left eye, you know, they were doing that effectively, Or I did a whole range of different things like that. And then just, you know, seeing what the world looked like through very different eyes, and then also building kind of sculptural objects which responded well to that particular perception. Now, some of them were fantastic, you know, these things which turned and you looked at them through these special glasses, and the space was just conforming, you know, just doing really different things. Fascinating stuff. And I did speak to him afterwards. We had quite a nice conversation about all this. And one of the things that I was interested in, but I couldn't kind of draw him on really, was to do with the relationship between these different ways in which the senses present the world to us, and where we perceive ourselves to be, the feeling of what a self is, as interpreted by the way the self is experiencing the world around us. So, for example, with this thing about perception, one of the things I was interested in, and which I did a little bit of work on, as I say, when I was working on the vision of whales and rabbits a few years ago, was, for example, you know, what's it like if you've got eyes on the side of your head, right? You've got eyes on the side of your head. You don't do the binocular vision thing where the two images merge and give you a depth perception. If you've got eyes on the side of your head like rabbits and whales, those separate images, as I say, they never fuse to make 3 dimensions. They map onto a kind of panorama. So you see in panoramic vision, and you have to take your depth perception cues from other kind of things about the environment, you know, perhaps size or fuzziness or something like that. So that's really different. But in both those cases, in the binocular vision that we've got, in which we're always at the centre of our world, there's a perspectival shortening which goes out in all directions. All the lines of perspective all pointing was to us. Yeah, everywhere you look, there's lines of perspective leading out. So you're always at the centre of your own perspectival vision. And I guess even for whales and rabbits, even though they've got this thing going on, there's it does kind of lead back to the central being at the beginning of it. So I'm guessing that if a whale or a rabbit was conscious in the way we are, they'd probably be conscious of themselves as a located entity at a particular point in space, moving through 3-dimensional space in particular ways. Yeah, because that's what bodies do. So it's good that our perspectival vision reproduces that. But if we were going to leave the body behind, why would we want our perceptions to do that? Why would we want a body, an android body, a robot body, that also sees things either in binocular vision or like rabbits and whales do? Why would we want it to do that? Because that just confirms the existence of a body being located at a particular point in space, and a self being located at a particular point in space. I would want a consciousness which did something different, and I would want sensory organs which did something different. So I would want it, so instead of having perhaps 2 eyes at the front or even at the sides of my head, I would want an eye here, or maybe 2 eyes here, or a clump of eyes here, and I would want some that hovered around the place, perhaps on little propellers, you know, little motors, hovering, and I could send them out. And I would need a piece of software. I would need to develop the cognitive capacities, the computational capacities perhaps, to map the inputs from all these different cameras that were my eyes and do something with them, but not just configure them back into a centered being that just is fixed here in space. I would want it to do something different. I would want to be in different places, still have a selfness, but it's not a selfness that's just at the spoke in the perspectival wheel, which is just a bit boring really. I would want to be distributed. And I would want similar things with hearing and touch perhaps. Do different things with that. That'd be much more interesting, wouldn't it? So yeah, I don't know where that goes really. I might do some more. I might reconstruct some of the these little vision things, because I did enjoy doing that. I must say, it was fascinating. I made one years ago, which was like a box that you put in your head with mirrors on the side, so you could wear it, and you could just look out at that side and that side. I thought maybe you could acclimatise yourself to that, because the glasses that flip your vision upside down, if you wear them for a few days, you get completely used to it. You don't notice it anymore. But the ones with the side, I wore them for hours and hours and hours, and there's no way of getting used to it. I mean, you're never going to merge it, obviously, because there's nothing to merge. But you never get used to the tumbling nature of the world that you inhabit. But, you know, maybe with a bit of practice, and if we are going to be transhuman by 2045, I wouldn't want an avatar body. I would like a humanoid one, certainly. I would want a body that was more like a swarm or a flock or a plant, something like that. I would want a bit of my body to be part of the earth and doing something there. Part of my body to be floating in space. Part of my body to be stretched across long periods of time. I would want a really different sense of consciousness. And I would want the consciousness that is produced by those kind of sensory experiences, not just a simple reproduction of this sensory experience. Anyhow, I think that'll do. I'll point a link to the video, the 2045 video I started watching. But I've made it else. I found it curiously nostalgic, because it's really old-fashioned to me, even though it was only made a couple of years ago. Anyway, thanks very much. Bye.